the exchange and the story, like Derrida's postcard, all fall in on each other. As Levitt explains in the story, an important letter changes hands many times, and while readers understand that the letter is important, we never learn the contents of his letter. For Lacan, the message of this story and its letter is that the letter always arrives at its destination. As Levitt explains, this might mean that wherever the letter is its destination. Derrida is not so sure. In response to Lacan, Derrida argues that he overlooks, meaning Lacan, quote, the possibility of sheer accident or irreversible loss, among other things which, according to Derrida, are also an inevitable part of such a postal vision. And I know postal has a really bad connotation, so if you'll kind of keep that on the side. The results of this, according to Derrida, include, and I want to say this, forgetting, oblivion, or worse, death and destruction, all of which, quote, drive people to write, send, and save letters. This is, as Levitt reminds us, one form of archive fever, a drive to recall life from dead matter, unquote. So for Derrida, the urgency is that there are no guarantees that the letter will ever arrive at its destination, that it will reach its intended addressee. The hope, perhaps, against hope, is that in the circulation, these posts just might find other readers in other times and other places. To me, this is what memory does. It reverberates, it moves and changes. And in the process of circulating and recirculating, new things come into view. We read and we read again. We see new things again and again. Here I'm reminded of Israeli cultural critic Ariela Azouley's recent photographic archival work in Israel-Palestine. Azoulay revisits the photographic archive that is both that of the founding of the State of Israel and the story of life before. In revisiting these images, among others, Azoulay revisits what we thought we already knew, what we thought we were seeing and knowing about a quite specific past. And instead, she shows us traces of the deeply connected lives of those who inhabited the space of what became Israel-Palestine in 1947, 1948, 1949, 1950, and 1951. Azoulay allows us to see that Muslims and Jews, European and Mizrahi, religious and or secular, Arab Christians and Muslims, and various Christian Europeans all lived lives that were connected and intimate. These interactions are part of the visual archives she re-narrates as she looks again at the images we thought we already knew. And for Azoulay, it is all about addressing and seeing the loss of a more integrated society. It is about life in this place and in this time, and then what came after as a radical disruption. A catastrophe for all who had lived in this or that place. The catastrophe was for all and not just for us or for them. It was a loss of these everyday interactions and encounters, the stuff of ordinary, quotidian life. Before 1948, the boundaries were, as she shows us, less clear, less distinct. We leave her visual archive less sure than we thought we were about who is whom and who belongs where. This is part of what Azoulay's project commemorates. The work brings us to see anew and remember in the process of seeing again. And this too is a form of thinking through memory, again showing how the past is made new in the present, represented, allowing an opening up of our eyes, our vision, here and now. As I thought about these remarks, I decided to send a letter. I wrote to Eliza to talk about these things, to consider with her the ways that our letters do and do not always reach their destinations, or what we imagine might be their destination, their intended readers or audiences. And I came to her with this vision in part because of other postmark pictures, my own musings about photography, photographs recovered, remembered, recirculated. I wrote to her about the resonances between her account of Freud and his uncanny notion of memory and the transmission of knowledge, and my own account of these matters in my book, American Jewish Laws After the Holocaust. Here I had in mind my second chapter, entitled Postmark Pictures, where I offered a meditation of sorts on an enigmatic film that performs these strange workings of memory. Experimental filmmaker Abraham Ravitt's short, non-narrative film, Half-Sister, a film about his mother's other child, his half-sister, whose memory returns with the receipt of a long-forgotten image of this child, mailed to the filmmaker almost 50 years after her death in Auschwitz. The film resonated for me with another image returned belatedly in my own family. A portrait of my father's parents, not the grandmother I knew, but the woman I was named for and had not known about, the mother who died when my father was a child. My book is about this return of memory and my own efforts to learn about this woman who was my grandmother, as well as the woman I knew as my grandmother, and the difficulties of piecing together any semblance of a story. Learning through my own experience that these efforts themselves produced not so much the past, but a new vision, a story out of the present about that other time, an impure, tainted vision of the long-for past. And to make that clear, I ended my chapter with a postscript, a letter to my dear readers, that itself tells precisely the tale I've been telling here about the letters that are memory, how they move through time and space, and what happens in that process. And I'm just going to give you a little taste of that, and I will end with that taste. So at the end of the chapter, I write, Dear Reader, this postscript, I'm editing it a little bit. This postscript is my belated engagement with the title of my chapter, Postmark Pictures. I had purposely delayed this discussion as a way of enacting the lateness that marked all of my engagements in this project. I did this to make clear that these kinds of engagements always come in some sense too late. And yet, despite this, I hope to suggest that in the end, for Ravitt, for me, and I expect for many of us, the presence of loss, of specific losses, however inarticulate, have always been a presence in our lives. Even before we receive word of their particulars, we are often haunted. Our knowledge of the past remains sketchy. The traces retrieved, in Ravitt's case and my own, a letter and a long-lost image, allow us to touch what were hitherto completely inaccessible stories. In these cases, the haunting has been transformed. We know who and what we might be grieving. Ravitt powerfully enacts this haunting presence in his film. In a somewhat different way, with the help of Ravitt, I attempted to animate the image of my grandmother, to begin to imagine who she was, who she might have been, and how her death and the shame and secrecy surrounding her death shaped both me and my family. In this sense, like Walter Benjamin's Digger, I too have taken